Okay, so this video is designed to give you two tools that will really be beneficial to you throughout the course of this semester, certainly the beginning of the semester for sure, as you're getting comfortable with the HTML and CSS language. So the first thing I want to bring your attention to is this website called W3Schools.com, and I'll put a link to it on the assignment or on the this video page, content page. But it's one that you're just going to start, you'll just memorize it because it'll become very, very handy to you. So W3Schools.com. And what this site does is gives you a great lookup. So if you don't know how to use a tag or you need some help, this is a great resource. It's like looking things up in the dictionary. Right off the bat, W3Schools.com, you can see that here is your basic web page. So this is the very, very basic structure of a web page, and if you want to just copy and paste that into I'm going to pull over my editor here. If I just want to copy and paste that into an editor, I've got a great start for a web page. So we've been talking about indenting, and I'd prefer to see these two indented because, that's not what I'm going to Control Z that. Can I tab that? I cannot. So let's see if I can just do it one at a time. There we go. The reason for the indenting here is, remember, we want to indent whenever we open an element and close an element inside of an opening and closing element. We want to get into the habit of indenting that element within. So these are nested elements. They're nested within the opening and closing tags of another element, so they should be indented. So even though they don't do it here in W3 Schools, it's something I'm going to be looking for, and something that in the long run you'll appreciate that I got kind of naggy about this. So anyway, I would indent this. But remember, I asked you to always save things as index. So I'm going to save this file, save it on my desktop as index.html. And now I've got a basic web page started. So yay. I'm going to put that aside for a moment. If, for example, let's say I want to look up, this is where it really comes in handy. We'll be doing CSS too soon, so this is another good reference for you. But let's say I'm going to click on, I want to find something. I want to find something about one of the things we're doing this particular week is images. So I can type in, spelled correctly maybe, the word image, and it will take me to a whole bunch of stuff at the top. But make sure you look for links to W3 Schools, and there's something about images, so this must be a reference on how I can incorporate images into my page. And sure enough, if you scroll down, there's plenty of examples of how to do things, and if I continue to scroll down, it'll give me information about the syntax. And remember, this word is attribute, so different attributes that I can add to my tag. So here's an example of some different attributes and some explanations of what they do. For example, I wonder what alt is. Well, alt provides an alternate text for an image if it doesn't for some reason show up in our browser. So this gives you all kinds of information, not only about the element itself, but about the optional, most of the time optional, but not all of them, attributes that we can add to our element. And if you click on try it yourself, very oftentimes there's situations like this where it's sort of a live editor, so you can see or you can manipulate, like, oh, I wonder if I misspelled the file name. I wonder if that's still going to work. I mean, it's kind of a stupid example, but it gives you the idea. And then if I click run, you can see what happens as a result of your changing the code around. And then, oh, maybe I better correct it, etc., etc. So this is kind of a silly example of that. But again, here's code that you can copy and paste. And oh yeah, don't forget to indent. Different things, so you can try different things. All right, and we're going to come back to this in a minute. Oh, and just kind of a side note, there's all kinds of tutorials here on HTML, so if you want some additional information or some additional tutorials on stuff that we're going over in the class, this is a great place to also play around in. But before, I'm going to come back to W3 Schools here in a minute, and I want to also bring your attention to this website, which is Validator.W3.org. And the nice thing about this site is it's code that you can either upload, or when we actually end up posting our stuff to a live website, which you will do, you can use that as well. But my point is, for example, that index page that I just created, I want to what's called validate it. So remember this page that we just created? I want to make sure that this code is good code. I want to make sure that It's good syntax, and I didn't make any mistakes. So there's several ways that you can do this. If we use a live site, we can use this validate by URI, but we don't have a live site yet. So we can validate by uploading that file. So if I go to my, I think I put it on my desktop, there it is. I can upload it from here and then do a check validate, and I can see that I have an error message. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, because I also want to show you that we can also validate by direct input. In other words, if I take all of this code and copy it, and I can directly put it into this validator as well, and it will check. And now it's not going to check for my indenting, but it is going to check to make sure that my code is correct. So it's not always consistent. You can see that this particular way, validated without any errors. And so this is going to be important for you to validate your code regularly, because we want to make sure just that we don't submit syntax errors. For example, let's say I misspelled the word body. Do you think this is going to validate? It shouldn't. You see, so now I'm getting errors. And sometimes the errors are kind of confusing, and sometimes they're frustrating, but that's programming. If you've done anything programming before, this is sort of synonymous to compiling your code. And the best way to attack this problem, notice I just had one little mistake, but I'm getting 3 errors. So the best thing to do is just try to take the top one and do your best to discern what it is that they're getting at, so that way you can try and troubleshoot your error. But the nice thing here is that I can test this immediately, get the fix, and then obviously this isn't affecting my original code, but at least it gives me, oh, now I know where to go fix it. But let's look back at this other error where I uploaded it and it didn't validate. Isn't that inconsistency kind of frustrating? Yes, it is. And sometimes that happens, but again, nothing is perfect, unfortunately. But let's look at this character encoding. I don't know what this means. Character encoding was not declared. I don't know. So what I'm going to use is this as an example. I'm going to copy this and come back into W3Schools again, and I'm going to put that into W3Schools and see if it has any kind of clue as to what character encoding is. Must be. So if we come back in here, we have a lot of information about character encoding. And in fact, this was one of the things that was mentioned in the very beginning of the book, is that we want to make sure we define what character set is being used. The book also talks a lot about HTML4 and HTML5. HTML5 is a standard that was adopted within the last 2 years, so it's relatively new. But man, is it much better than HTML4, because to do this same sentence statement in HTML4, we used to have to do all of this text, and it's much more verbose. So you'll see references to HTML4 and HTML5 throughout the book, and also throughout W3Schools. That's because HTML4 is not really that old. HTML5 is, I think it was November of 2000, 2 years ago, whatever that happens to be. There's a math problem. Anyway, so we're using HTML5, so make sure you use that. But anyway, so if I copy that into my code, let me pull up Text Wrangler again, or my text editor. And if I paste that into the appropriate place, well, I don't know where to put it. Let me see if there's an example of where to put it. I would assume somewhere down here there is a, maybe not. All of this too is discussed in your book, since I'm glossing over all of this, is discussed in your book as far as special characters. I'm kind of going sideways here, so let me not do that. Let me not go sideways. Let me paste this meta tag character set. I'm going to save it, and then let's put that, but let me keep track of one thing at a time and not go all over the place. So now that I have this character set in place, I'll come back into my validator. I have to go back to upload it again. I'm going to upload the file, index, and let's verify now that we did in fact. This time we passed that error message. So it's really important that you come into the validator and check your code to make sure that your syntax is correct, that you're not having any errors. So the takeaway from today, I'll come back to characters in another video. The takeaway from this video is to utilize W3Schools.com. This is definitely going to become your friend, to look up syntax to give you ideas of different things that you can do. And we'll see more and more of W3 Schools as we go along. I use this as an examples a lot. But again, if you want to look up image, I would encourage you. We're using images this particular assignment this particular week, so you can come in here and look up images. And then make sure you go into the validator. When you're done with your code, validator3.org, and you can either upload your video or you can input it directly, your code directly, to make sure that you have done all of the things. You've correctly put opening and closing tags, and that your code is syntactically correct. So that is the two tools that will be very useful to you very quickly.